they say, Jesus is the way. He will bring us through. Our praise is overdue. No matter what they say, Jesus is the way. He will bring us through. Our praise is overdue. Praise is overdue.
Somebody praise him.
Praise is overdue.
Will you stand to your feet?
He will bring us through.
Somebody owes Jesus a praise right now. He's been mighty good to you.
Praise is overdue.
Show him how much you love him.
His praise is overdue.
Praise him. Give him worship and honor. He will bring us through.
His praise is
overdue.
Put away your tears and sorrow. My God's the same today and tomorrow. Whatever it is to face it.
Hello everybody, welcome to Late Night Television with Jerry Royce Live Worldwide. So this is actually Jerry Royce Live. I'm sitting here with Jessica Highsmith. She just made a long trip from North Carolina. She's visiting us here at Wayne Manor Studio in the beautiful Charm City. Beautiful day. How was your travel?
It was pretty good. It was pretty good. I can't complain about it.
That's right, you made a 6-hour trip in 3 hours. That's incredible.
Okay, not 3, maybe about 4.5.
That's good, that's good. That's shorter than driving to New York for us.
That's true.
All right, well welcome to Positive Power. We hope you're having a great time here in our great city.
I am. I haven't been able to venture out too much, but I did get to go to Georgia Peach and venture out there, so I had to put my food up. Been looking forward to tasting that a little bit later.
That's right. Good for you. Good for you. All right, Jessica, we're here to talk a little bit about your company, Empower Me Books. I know you got a couple things going on. Kind of break it down to our audience exactly what is Empower Me. What is Jessica Highsmith up to?
Okay, so I do a few things. I run under Empower Me Enterprises, and so with that, it's more like an umbrella program with some of the different visions that God had given me at various times. So I have Empower Me Nonprofit, which is kind of where I give back, you know, to the community in various ways. One of those ways is through Empower Me STEM. So that could be going out to the universities, the elementary schools or the high schools, and, you know, just giving STEM career presentations, STEM seminars to the university students, just different things. Even like with some of my books, I have more STEM related books on that side that kind of give back to helping a lot of undergraduate college students as well as high school students prepare for their careers in STEM.
That's right.
And then other things that the nonprofit side does is women in the workplace. You know, I've done some workshops with that, and I'm looking forward to picking some of those back up again in the future, where different professionals get to come together no matter what their business background or their professional background, and get to sit down and kind of collaborate on different issues or topics or struggles that they've encountered in the workplace and how to handle those. You know, in a positive light, because sometimes, especially being a woman in the workplace, it's a crazy thing sometimes.
Yeah, it can be challenging. It can be.
Yeah, so I mean, a couple of different things, and that's kind of been the nonprofit side. And I have Empower Me Books, which is more my publishing and coaching. So I've been focused on that quite often, where I use my history a lot on my upbringing, my experiences, to be able to give back to the community and things of that sort, and people, and kind of empower them and help them develop, you know, especially with coming out of trauma and different types of hurts and things, how to get over abandonment issues and different mental health issues and things of that sort, for things that I've come through my life. And now I've expanded that to allow other publishers who have stories that they want to tell, you know, to be able to come through, and I help them get published. So that's kind of what I've been working on.
Yeah, that's awesome. So let's get a little background about Jessica. Tell people a little bit about your background, your schooling, you know, where you get your education from.
Oh gosh. So I've kind of been around the world when it comes to school. So I started out at Methodist University. It used to be Methodist College out of Fayetteville. I started out there, had an academic scholarship, also ran track. Went there for that, and then as my mom would call it, I thought I was big and grown enough, so I transferred without talking to her about it. And so I did. I transferred to Winston-Salem State University, and you know, continued to run there and play tennis there for a little bit, but really, you know, was able to learn a lot of like skills that was going to help me as far as in a real world setting. So that helped prepare me for that. My great grandmother got sick, and I decided to go back home to kind of help out with that. And little did I know, she ended up getting sick, and my mom decided to put her in a rest home so that she would be able to have 24-hour care. And my mom, she's a single parent. So in the process of that, my grandmother actually passed. Not my great-grandmother, my grandmother, and we were really close. And so I was able to spend that time with her because I had moved back home. During that time, I ended up having to transfer to Fayetteville State. So I finished up my degree there, and you know, I said it's been a journey, but I was really excited about the journey and how it came forth. It brought me full circle, and being at Fayetteville State actually opened the door for a lot of research opportunities in STEM and things of that sort for chemistry, which really kind of set me on a path forward with being able to go out and do different things within my, you know, professional career for my education. So yeah, I've done that. So I have a degree in chemistry, pre-med, and a minor in math. You always say I've got a bunch of degrees. I have an MBA focused in project management. I'm actually on a break right now for my PhD program in business and organizational leadership and development. So that's what I've done.
All right, that's right. I told them they walked in the door about 20 degrees. That's right, about 3 people. But that's awesome, though. It's good to know that our African American, our people are in higher education and not only pursuing careers working for other people, but also establishing businesses for themselves. Because that's one of the things that's really coming out now in our media. Like, when are we going to start building our own foundations for our kids? I mean, a lot of times, you know, you think about, like you just said, you have a business in place for helping people struggling in the workplace. A lot of times you are going to struggle in the workplace. A lot of times you're probably one of those kind of people who've been held back, maybe made one mistake and they're holding you to that mistake. Or you could be someone that's very progressive, but they fearful that you may make them look bad. So a lot of times there's signs that you should be probably working. All that training and education you had experienced in school probably equipped you enough that you can start your own business. Of course, a lot of times we don't have access to those kind of resources to be able to put a business in place and hire right away and then immediately start growing your business. And sometimes that's one of the biggest problems. Have you found that to be a problem for you right now? Are you looking at resources to take your business to another level?
So I know when I first started, and I've kind of been blessed to be able to, you know, try different things. I started out actually using some of my hobbies as businesses when I first started out. And so I got to do a lot of research back then. It's probably been about 6-7 years ago now, but even with, like, say, the self-help credit union and finding out that they have different types of loans to help people, even if you had, say, credit issues, right? And I know back then, you know, I was maybe like in my 20s, and I was kind of like, okay, well, you know, how do I go about this if, you know, my credit is kind of messed up? You know, some of us have ran into student loans and everything else. And so that was one of the places I was ventured to at the time. I found out they had a great program. One, for example, if you say needed a loan for $4,000, then you put up $2,000 for that loan and you're giving it to the bank. Now the bank then takes that money and they'll month by month pay themselves with that $2,000, and then they report it to the credit union, you know, to the credit bureaus, and then it shows that you've established credit. Once you've done that, then what they do is they take your $2,000 and they put $2,000 with it, and that becomes your $4,000 loan. So it's like you're helping yourself at the same time restore credit, while at the same time you have what you need to kind of help out with starting the foundation of your business. So just different things like that, you know, going through small business, the SBA, Small Business Administration. different places like that. They've been very helpful for a lot of things, but then I had to, you know, venture out and do other things on my own, and it was kind of difficult. So now I try to, like, even with consulting, I'll try to like help people, you know, make it a little easier for them and show them how to do different things, you know, from getting incorporated, you know, setting up your nonprofits, things like that, because I had to have a lot of help with certain things. Some of the stuff I knew and I was just too scared to do because I was like, I'm gonna do it wrong. But just over the time now, with years of doing different stuff, I've just been able to definitely take what I've learned just from doing what I'm doing and now help somebody else.
That's
with
right.
it.
That's
So
right. Yeah, sometimes it's just a matter of just going out there, take the risk, try it out. You're going to make mistakes. A lot of times they say most businesses don't show a profit until about 5 years, but if you can see that growth starting to happen, and now I'm hearing now that a lot of people make a grave mistake when they are trying to establish credit for their businesses. They're using their own Social Security number when you shouldn't do that. You should be using your EIN. And there's a lot of credit sources out there that can help you, like your Office Depots and stuff like that, help you because they report it right away. Works a lot different than when it works against your personal, establishing personal credit. So there's a lot to learn out there, y'all. There's a lot of information out there on YouTube, on establishing businesses, a lot of podcasts. So take advantage of some of those resources, y'all. So basically, Jessica, we just want to know where you were with your business and sharing your education and trying to motivate people out there who are in our shoes right now, who are sitting right now thinking about, well, should I start a business? Should I start a radio show? Should I start a TV show? Go out there and do it, y'all. Don't be afraid. Right now, this is a good time to go in business right now. You see a lot of things are happening in the news where you're kind of in a position where you should be trying to establish a business for not just for you, but for your children, as well as preparing for your retirement. Because a lot of times, a lot of us not going to have the income when we retire, the same income you're having now, because you lose like what, almost 75% of your income when you retire. So you need to have that savings. So it's going to take a lot more than back in the days. I remember they said if you have $300,000, you're pretty safe. Yeah,
it's actually now. This was a funny thing. But working in pharmaceuticals, I was blessed to attend one seminar probably about 4 or 5 years ago, and they had a person that they brought in, you know, just to kind of help people understand how important it was to invest. And the lady said that, you know, if you are looking to retire, you know, and say you want to retire, just to say at the age of 40 or 50, in order to do that and to live on just $60,000 a year, you needed at least $1 million, and that was for one person. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. So it puts things in focus that you can't just rely on your 401k. You can't just rely on, you know, okay, well, I have my money in stocks and bonds. You need to definitely invest and diversify your portfolio. And so that's one of the things I'm just like, you know, I'm really grateful that, you know, I've been blessed to have people put in my life to kind of help me with that. You know, I even have a friend, like, that's all she does. Like, she's really big into financial counseling. So I'm just like, even with her, I'm like, thank you, Tiffany, like, help me. Help me, you know. And then as I learn, my thing is giving back. Like, what is it that I've learned that I can do different? So I do that not just with my life story, but with business. Whatever I'm learning, I'm trying to always get back to let people understand, okay, well, this is what you can do and this is how you can do it. And so, of course, I've learned that I have to be business savvy and be smart about it, and I have to bring in income when I do it, but I try not to overcharge people like what I see that's out there. Make it reasonable where people can still access and get what they need as well.
That's right, establishing those business relationships. All right, y'all, that's all for today, or for tonight. This is Late Night Talk with Jerry Royce Live Worldwide. Jessica Highsmith, thank you for joining me on the set.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody. This is Music Vision Television with Jerry Royce Live Worldwide. Thank you. Welcome, everybody, to Late Night Talk Radio with Jerry Royce Live with Music Vision Television. I'm here on the set with Empower Me Books. One of her clients, Jessica Highsmith, is Justin is big here. Big J is here to talk about his project. What's going on? Welcome to Music Vision Television. I'm great, man. All right, tell us a little bit about yourself, man.
So my name is Justin Evans. I'm finished my last year in law school. Before going to law school, I was a scientist. I worked in the field of cancer therapeutics, developing cancer therapeutics to target some of the diseases that are often overlooked.
And Justin, you look like a pretty young scientist, man. How old are you, man?
I just turned 30 this month.
That's still young. So
I wish.
it's like people think when you go to school to be a scientist, it's like 8 years because it takes pretty much that long to become an engineer. So how long does it take to become a scientist?
It depends on how far you would like to go. It's normally 4 years undergrad. If you choose to do a master's, it's 2 to 3, or if you go straight for a PhD, it can be 5 to 8.
All right. So what encouraged you to become a scientist?
What encouraged me to be a scientist, it's a very interesting journey for me. I went to college because I wanted to impress this young girl. I didn't know anything about college. And once I started going down that path, I met a very amazing woman named Dr. Rizzo, and she introduced me to science and let me work in her lab. And it was a way to make sure that when I wasn't working at Red Lobster, I wasn't in the streets of Indianapolis, because we had a lot of murders that were going on that summer, and she wanted to make sure that I would make it to college in the fall. And I fell in love with cancer research that summer. Went off and majored in chemistry, started working in chemistry and doing research from there on.
Wow. Okay, let's back up a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about your background, man, where you come from. Tell us a little bit about your background, your childhood.
So I'm the youngest boy from my father. He's 5 of us. We grew up in inner city Indianapolis. I grew up on the south side specifically.
Wow. And it's funny, I remember talking to a Christian rapper, and they was talking about high crime in Arkansas and Tennessee, Memphis. I was like, where? Because I know, like, we talk about like some parts of Maryland, what is, you know, the southern part of Maryland that's like remind you a lot of the South. You know, even though it's not like you're really going that deep south, it's still deep. Maryland is almost like deep south in those areas, and sometimes those communities, you know, those lower poverty areas only make up maybe like 3 or 4 blocks, but those are areas where people have gotten shot, they're dealing drugs, and prostitution is going on. I mean, is that pretty much the way your community was? Was it like, how many square blocks did you talk about the community?
So there were a number of different areas. On the south side, it was several blocks, but you also had the east side and the west side. But it started because of something we talked about earlier. Indianapolis had a lot of steel jobs and automotive jobs, and when they left, there were no jobs that replaced that, and the easiest thing to do to take care of your family was to turn to some illegal activities. Right,
and sometimes, I mean, I hate to say it, but a lot of times we do have to blame that on the readiness of our politicians of our cities, because a lot of times our politicians are not really prepared for that. Cause that's, like we talked about on the radio, it happened in Baltimore. I remember in my community, we had you know, 2-parent households where I grew up. Basically, that area, we called it Ashburn. It was a greater part of Baltimore. It kind of reminded you of the suburbs a little bit, but it was in a city, but it was really nice. You know, we did have a bus system that passed through, and a few blocks was the rail system, and we was able to commute downtown and everything, and out to the county areas and take you out to the airport. But what was so fascinating about the community was that it was a makeup of lower income and lower middle class blacks. I say lower middle class because we were very close to middle class whites, but we was lower because our parents shared not the same occupation, but they worked for those same companies. Okay. You know, they were good, strong companies like your Bethlehem Steels and your Sparrows Points. And then we had some like CMP, which was like Verizon, MCI. We had a lot of big financial institutions that was doing well. So you can come right out of high school and get a more than a minimum wage job working for these people. And these guys built their careers there. And like you said, when those plants closed down, because it was a change, it was a shift was going on. It's like, okay, now our dads are getting laid off, and this was the same guy that was the breadwinner, because the wife back then didn't work in the 60s and the 70s. If it did happen, they were mostly school teachers, and they were some of your well-to-do African Americans. They were your middle class, because chances were both of them were probably both school teachers, because they probably went to college. And just think about it, if you watch some of the older movies back then, if you remember watching some of them, most of the time, if the wife was a nurse, the husband probably was like a supervisor, janitor, custodian, or something like that. But that was considered to be a good income, dual income family. You know, they did well. So then you spread up into the 70s and 80s, and then you're talking about a lot of us, our parents are first generation college graduates, which at that time, what were the opportunities? Nurse or school teacher. You know, wasn't a lot of things available. Or luckily, if he was able to get a job as a manager of like Sears or JCPenney or something like that, which I don't know.
Closing out.
Yeah, right. He was closing it out. So thinking about what happened to Indianapolis, and that woman being there to inspire you to become a scientist, that was almost kind of like visualization. You know, it was almost like you wanted to be what you saw. So if you just saw drugs on the street and the guy's dealing it, then you're like, wow, when I grow up, I want to be like Ray Ray. You know, I want to drive, I want to have rims on my car like that, because that's what you see, right? Because he got the girls. That's pretty much was our motivation back then. So now you're looking at this woman and she's telling you can be a scientist. Now you kind of thinking a little bit, wow. You know, go to college. You know, you was probably a smart kid in school, but you probably didn't want to. You kind of had to be undercover being smart, didn't you?
I did. I mean, one of the incidents I can remember vividly was because of the way I dressed. I had a teacher approach me in high school and berate me because I was hanging around the administration office, and she didn't know that I was a messenger because I had aced all my classes and there was very, very little left for me to take. And one of the ladies came up to her and told her, hey, he's number 11 in the class. And she couldn't believe it. She's looking at me, he has a hoodie on and jeans, like there's no way that this guy could be smart.
Right. Stereotype. Well, moving forward, where we are now for the 21st century, he's a scientist now in law school. Tell us a little bit about that experience. What made you decide to study law? What motivated you?
I think for me, there were a number of things that made me want to go in that direction. I started seeing politics in universities. So I'm looking at all of these drugs that have been developed down the hallway, and I can't understand why they're not making it to the people that need them. Then I went off and I worked for a government agency and seen similar politics there also. And I realized very quickly, if I work for a pharmaceutical company who their bread and butter is to get the drugs to the people, I can have an influence on maybe one or two of the drugs that come out and try to target some of them to some of the underrepresented communities. And then on the flip side, I felt like there was a need in my community to have somebody who could speak on some of the legal issues and who came from some of those situations. So I had an opportunity to work in the court last year and really see some of the disadvantages that plague our community.
Wow, that's so interesting. And you know, and listening to you talk about the politics of, you know, who the drugs are going to be for and who they're going to benefit. I remember when I was researching, you know, my disease, type 2 diabetes, and I was reading how a lot of the African Americans were saying a lot of the drugs that was being developed, we weren't part of those focus groups, so we didn't really know, you know, that the drugs were really benefiting us. You know, a lot of times they were affected us a little differently than they affected, you know, our counterparts. And even our brown brothers and sisters weren't part of those focus groups. So we're finding out that, you know, because our diet is different, you know, because we talked about that when you guys came in. And we was talking about cancer and how it will affect us because where we live, sometimes those drugs won't have I guess, is it because of the potency? Or what is exactly what's going on? It's
a double-edged sword. So one of the things we talked about is we don't want to go into doctors. So if they come and ask us to be a part of a clinical trial, we're not going to do it.
Right.
And we haven't been as strong as other people. China, for example, if you come out with a drug, they will ask you to do a whole nother series of tests in their people to make sure it works. And until we can come together and say, hey, do this in our community too to see if it works.
Right.
And get people to sit on some of those ethical boards that are coming up with the clinical trials and make sure that we're going to be safe.
Yeah, so is that the deal? So are our makeup different than our Caucasian brothers and sisters?
I mean, it is. It is. That's why there are certain diseases that affect us that do not affect them. Right. Like sickle cell is a great example of something that affects our community, but really no other community. And why is that?
Yeah, that is interesting. That is interesting. Yeah, and you think about some of the experiments that went on and some of the things that went on where they were able to find cures for other races because of some of the chemical makeup they pull from our bodies. You know, you hear about that all the time. We have some huge biological laboratories here in the Baltimore area now, humongous, buying up a lot of territory in Baltimore to be able to, I guess, put on some of these studies. You know, it's really interesting. And being where you are, you're on the science side and the legal side. Is that kind of like the best of both worlds now for you?
It is because not only can I tell you about the legal side or legal implications, but I can also tell you how the drug is going to affect you as a person. I mean, not your exact genetic makeup, but what it will do in general. But since we're moving to everybody screening themselves for their genetic testing, that's given us more power of information so that we can be more informed with some of the things that we do.
Absolutely. Now, Justin, for a young person out there watching, or maybe a parent who has a smart child who has an interest in biology or chemistry, what would you say to that parent? You know, what type of child what kind of student would that child need to be to go down that road?
I can't even say a particular type of student, because I mean, a lot of the teachers who had me wouldn't expect me to be here, so I don't think there's a certain type. But one of the things I did notice when I was in the lab as a senior, there were nurses who would bring their kids to labs also, and their kids would be 10 years old in the summertime coming to learn about science this year, following a doctor the next year. So it's about exposing your kids to as many opportunities as possible and really being invested in their education.
Right. And I guess the road where I was traveling down is like, would you say there need to be a child who's like really focused, as like his focus is not on like having fun or going to school because this is going to be like vacation because I want to get away from home? Would you say that would that student need to be like saying coming out of high school in a public school, would you say, well, he need to be a 2.5, like a B student or an A student, or you say, oh, he could be a C student if he focused or he has a concentration that he's interested in?
I think that a lot of times it's about finding what interests him. So even if he's a C student, he may become an A student. I mean, I left middle school probably a C student and aced out of high school and aced out of college. Wow. So I mean, it's all about finding something that interests the student.
Yeah. That's right.
So I think any student.
That's right. And I was telling you guys in the radio room, you know, I exposed my son to this. I'm not sure what he's going to do with this later on down life, but it just proves to him that he can do anything. It's not, he's just not a kid that's just growing up as a teenager playing all the time and just going to school. He said, hey, I had worked with my dad before. You know, we produced shows that have won awards on major networks, and you know, so it's like that was like really important to me. Even though I was telling my mom today, I said, she said, well, is he really, what is he interested? I said, well, you know, he's going to school for computer engineering and he's also studying media. He's worked with me. I don't really know. Maybe later on he might be like my brother now. We went to school for engineering in high school, but when we went to college, we went to school for something different. So sometimes you never know, but the main thing is like, at least you're showing them something that they can have choices, you know, and expose and say, hey, it's not just about having fun all the time, and it's not just about athletics all the time too, you know, at least have a choice. At least you know what you're made of. That's what I say. You know.
No, I agree.
That's right, amen. All right, Justin, it was great having you here, man. Any final words you'd like to say to our audience, man?
I really think that we should start investing in our kids' futures. I think that any kid has the potential to do anything that they put their mind to, as long as they have a support system at home that encourages them. And yeah, that's about it.
That's right. I appreciate that, man. All right, everybody. Appreciate you guys tuning in to Music Vision Television. I'm Jervis Live on Late Night. Take care, everybody, and see you soon.
My Father, please come and save me. On this sofa, bagging up this soda. I'm just trying to wake up. Didn't know he would take me. 8 years old, I was jumping off the porch. 9 years old, started smoking them ports. 10 years old when I got my first job. 11 years old, started stripping them cars. 12 years old when I got my first charge. 13 years old, I was slinging that hard. 14 years old, I catch you off guard. 15 years old, could've bought the whole bar. I was 16, thugging on the block and heard God. Tears in my face, couldn't take no more. High as a kite, couldn't. No matter what they say, Jesus is the way. He will bring us through. Our praise is overdue. No matter what they say, Jesus is the way. He will bring us through. Our praise is overdue.